Last November, when I was at the ARC conference in London, I was at a coffee break chatting with various fellow attendees when all of a sudden I saw a person in the crowd with a bright blue suit which had the words "Get Money" running down it in parallel lines. I thought, I'm going to go talk to that person. Then I met Dimitry Toukhcher, and unsurprisingly, I discovered that he is a fashion designer. In addition to his Get Money suit, which I saw and loved that day, among many others, he also designed Jordan Peterson's famous Heaven and Hell suit, and actually made one suit for every one of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, based off of his famous book, of course. So today, I'm excited to bring Dimitry onto the show to talk about his philosophies on business and fashion. I'm Julie Hartman, and this is Timeless. Hey everyone, and welcome to Timeless and the Julie Hartman YouTube channel, where in addition to Timeless, you can also catch my show with Dennis Prager, which is every Monday on this channel at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. And then Timeless is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at that same time. And you can you can listen to either one of those on Spotify and Apple and anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm so happy to be with you today, as always. And I'm very happy to be joined by Dimitry Toukhcher. He's the CEO and founder of the global tailoring company LGFG Fashion House. LGFG stands for Look Good, Feel Good, which we certainly all want. LGFG has clients in over 20 countries and offices in North America, the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and Australasia. LGFG's fashion has been featured in Hollywood blockbusters and perhaps is best known for styling the famous, as I said, Heaven and Hell suit worn by Jordan Peterson. Hi, Dimitry, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
So I was just reading that bio and I said Australasia. Now that's on your website. Is that the correct term? And if so, what is Australasia?
That's the way I learned it in Canadian elementary school, and that sort of encompasses Australia, New Zealand, and because what continent is New Zealand? And it's sort of in the Australasian, let's say, region. So it was easier than saying Australia and New Zealand, so we put Australasia.
Well, you learn something new every day. I thought that I may have typed that out wrong, but good to know. So where are you zooming from now?
So I'm based in Estonia, which, for those that don't know, is a small country in northeastern Europe. So we are just directly south of Finland and directly north of Russia, and we're in the Baltics, which encompasses Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, that region of the world.
Well, I would begrudge people for not knowing what Estonia is, but I wouldn't begrudge them for not knowing what Australasia is. I actually been to Estonia. I was like 4 or 5 years old, but I remember it being beautiful. And I read that you were born in the USSR.
Yeah, that's right. So I was born in Ukraine, in Kiev, and then in 1992, when the Soviet Union officially disbanded, my family moved to Canada. And I grew up primarily in Vancouver on the west coast of Canada. And then 8 years ago, my wife is Estonian, and we decided, for family reasons like no corporate income tax, we moved to Estonia, which is where her family is. And that's where I've been for the better part of the last decade.
So how old were you when you moved from Ukraine to Canada?
I was 9 when we moved, and the next logical question is did you speak any English? No, I didn't. Russian was what we were speaking in Ukraine at the time, because remember, in the Soviet Union, everybody had to learn Russian. So I never learned Ukrainian as a language, especially in Kiev, the capital. Everything was done in Russian, and then I had to just relearn how to talk and how to think in the native tongue upon arrival.
So what do you remember? And by the way, I recognize this is not the point of our conversation today. It's about business and fashion, but I just think this is so interesting. So what do you remember about the fall of the Soviet Union, and why did your family decide to move to Canada?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I actually appreciate these questions, because as I've gotten older, let me put it this way. When I was 12, 13 years old, and I had been in Canada for a couple of years, the Soviet Union was still pretty new. And now the Soviet Union disbanded like we're looking at now over 30 years, which is like in ancient history for most of the new generation. They can't conceptualize it. They can't put it into reality to think, that it was something that was quite real and quite horrific. And so I think that's an important question. And I do remember I have been cursed with a insane memory. I remember Chernobyl. I was only 3
Wow.
when it happened, but I remember it being announced on TV. And people that have quizzed me on details of various things in my life from like when I was 3 and 4 years old, I can state those details quite vividly, and people are shocked. I'm like, yeah, I've been cursed with that memory. And so I remember my grandmother. She was writing or editing the local newspaper in Kiev, which was either Pravda, which means truth, ironically, right? Like everything in communism is the opposite of what it says, or one of the subordinate newspapers or publications of that branch. And she actually took me out of Kiev and all the way south to Odessa. And that's important because when the announcements came on the TV, it was said that there was rumors circulating from Sweden or something that there's been a nuclear reactor leak in Ukraine, and it's not true. Like what the news said is it's not true. It didn't happen. It's propaganda. And it was Sweden that reported it because they got nuclear potatoes. They were testing their potatoes, like something's off. And but my grandmother, who had been writing or editing the paper and had published the paper the next day that said it didn't happen, in fact knew that it did happen. And a lot of the wind the nuclear wind was blowing north. So my grandmother took me south. So I remember Chernobyl. And
Wow.
over the next few months, obviously the information leaked out. I remember bread lines pretty vividly, like my grandmother getting up at 5 in the morning to go to buy bread because by noon there would be no more bread, so you have to go and line up. I remember like one thing that was crazy. Ukraine was ravaged by World War II, so in the early '80s and mid '80s, World War II was like less than 40 years ago, and so people there were still what we call in Russian kalyaka, which is like it's not a it basically means a disabled person. A less politically correct term would be like gimp, and you would see these men with their legs blown off, like moving around the streets, and they were quite noticeable. And they wouldn't have wheelchairs; they just had a little skateboard that they built and 2 weights on their hands to push themselves around. So there was just some things you get desensitized to as a kid. Um, but the attitude, the general attitude, is everybody's telling you that everything's amazing and it's the best place on earth. And then, I remember landing in Vancouver extremely vividly when I was 9 years old. And my first trip to a supermarket, and everybody that came from the Soviet Union will tell you the same story because I've had lots of people I've talked about this. The first trip to the supermarket was just mind blowing. Like just seeing food, like in that abundance and the colors, and the cereal boxes, and like that experience will never leave me. That was insane.
Wow. See, I considered it to be kind of a segue, but it's, or going off an exit ramp, if you will, in this interview. But I think it's really important because I'm sure that this laid the groundwork for the businessman and entrepreneur that you have become.
Certainly it was part of that experience. The thing about a Soviet education is that, and my parents were the beneficiaries or the victims of it, how you look at it, and my grandparents, is that it's not very entrepreneurial. There's no such thing as an entrepreneur in the Soviet Union, but that would just be a gangster, an organized crime person, right? Because private enterprise was illegal. And it was punishable, and people think that's crazy, but like, yeah, if you're in North Korea and you're trading, goods and services, you will go to prison, and your family and the subsequent generations will be punished for that. So I didn't really know anything about business or entrepreneurship until even when I was in university. It was almost like just something that existed in the peripheral of my life, and I just never, because my parents were like, go to school, get a degree. Um, don't think about studying the humanities. The humanities were wildly unimportant in the Soviet Union. Like it was, you memorize some poems, etc. But the idea of like free thinking and philosophy, that's just considered insane and wasteful. And so therefore, all the schools were focused on sort of the STEM education, to I guess develop technology to glorify the nation somehow. And
Mm.
so, for me, it was like do well in math, do well in science, get a degree, get a good job, quote unquote. Um, but I did discover early on in university, like most entrepreneurs, they're like, I've always been selling things my whole life. I was putting deals together. I wasn't. I was really more into books and studying. But I discovered in early university that I really enjoyed selling things.
Hmm.
I liked that it gave me the freedom to earn more than flipping burgers. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the accountability it forced me to take upon myself. So it was kind of funny. I kind of just discovered the free market, or maybe it discovered me. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, I can make as much money as I'm competent to make. Um, and also it forces me to be a better person. It forces me to be a constructive person. It's one thing in business I talk about in some of my Instagram videos. Like, nobody wants to do business with a person that destroys communities, right? Like, if you're untrustworthy, if you break institutions, because you don't keep your promises, or because you're just generally not a person who can work with others, the market will not select you. So it forced me to optimize myself to make myself more attractive to the market,
Hmm.
meaning that I had to be harder working. I had to be more punctual. I had to be more presentable. I had to be better and more eloquently communicative with other people. And I had to learn to persuade people to my point of view in a way that that actualized into positive outcomes, and gave me and the other side what I wanted. And so it began almost as a journey towards self-improvement. Um, and that's kind of what capitalism is. Capitalism is really a journey to self-improvement, isn't it?
Mm. I love hearing you say that because, as you know very well, there's a huge contingent of people in the United States, and especially in my age group, who excoriate capitalism and say that it is this evil, defective thing. And it's like, you don't realize how lucky we are to be in this system and to have the opportunity to succeed or to fail, to improve ourselves. And I think oftentimes it doesn't surprise me when I see people who come from a background as you do, where you didn't grow up in a capitalist society. And when you entered into one, you appreciated and realized the potential and the opportunities that it offered to you.
Well, I'm about to elevate this this is about to escalate quickly. So, in a way, capitalism has a godlike quality in that it holds a mirror to you, doesn't it? And so the people that don't like capitalism because of its ruthlessness in terms of, personal survival and personal abundance, are those people who are unable to compete in an environment which offers personal benefits to those who are pragmatic, sagacious, and constructive. Much
Mm.
like, those people that perhaps would resent, some form of higher worship, because holding a mirror to their own conscience might not be the easiest thing.
Mm.
So to me, I'm. Some people call me juvenile for my belief. I like Ayn Rand. Everything that she's written has been very, well, let's say it's actualized to me in ways that I can't deny. Like, it's been real. And it's like, I saw Konstantin Kissin, I think, post something on Twitter. He's a great guy from trigonometry. He said that,
He's so funny.
you know,
His speech at ARC
right?
was hilarious.
Yeah, I just had a really great suit. He tweeted about, we made him with Thomas Sowell inside. I love Thomas Sowell, but he said that, people that despise capitalism, you know, he's like, I'll try to paraphrase, like, they despise something that promotes meritocracy and being good at something. And he's like, what kind of people would despise that? And he's like, read that again. It's the people that despise being good at something.
Yes.
Um, and by the way, and again, I'm probably
Mm.
repeating things you've said a million times with Dennis and others, but it's like, yeah, in capitalism, the majority picks the winners because everybody votes with their money for what they want. And in communism, still somebody has to be the winner, and it's always the government, and the person picking it is not so sophisticated, which is why the outcomes are often so poor.
Mm.
So pick your poison, I guess, right?
I'll say this one final thing about capitalism, but I'm very curious to hear whether you agree or disagree with me. In college, I took a course on the most prolific modern thinkers. And our professor instructed us to write an essay where we picked one of those thinkers and then wrote what we agreed with that person on and disagreed with them on. And so I picked Karl Marx. And
I thought you might say that.
Yeah, and I hate Karl Marx, and I think that he has ruined society many times over, and many different societies many times over. But I picked him because I thought, okay, I really want, I could write the whole essay on what I disagree with, but I really want to find something that I agree with. And I think some of his criticisms of capitalism are not totally unfounded. It's the prescription or the remedy that he provides that I think is totally off and exacerbates the problems that he has with capitalism. And I think he might have been onto something in identifying that there is a internal weakness or problem with capitalism that might bring about its demise. And in my judgment, I think it's the leisure and affluence that it produces. And I think we're seeing that right now in the United States of America, where only incredibly affluent people with the time and energy to waste could come up with something as absurd as like mansplaining, or there are 38 genders, a lot of microaggressions. It's like only the most privileged, affluent people have the leisure to come up with stuff like that. And I think that goes back to the affluence and prosperity that capitalism has given us. What do you think?
Well, first of all, let's call a spade. Two things. Number one, Karl Marx was a horrific human being. Like, before we even go into the body of work, and I know there's I had a very fascinating conversation with Jordan Peterson's opening classical musician, David Cotter, about this. Like, can you separate the artist from the art? He has a much easier time doing it. But for me, it's like, look, Karl Marx was a horrific human being. Like, his mother literally hated him. His wife hated him because, well, he knocked up his own, like housemaid and hid the child, wouldn't even let the child into the house. Everybody despised this person. He constantly changed his name and moved around because he owed money to everyone. And his mother was famously quoted as saying, instead of writing about capital, can you learn to make some capital? So
right.
Let's just establish that we're dealing with like just a horrifically unreliable and just vile human. Number one, that's not nothing. Number two, why listen to anybody who has not achieved positive outcomes in their life? It's like, yeah, go to a homeless guy and he'll tell you how to build a society. Like, that's literally the worst thing you can do, is go to a homeless guy and ask him how to build a society. Like go to a murderer and ask him how to build friendship. It's like, yeah, probably not the person you would go to for such important constructive things. In terms of the leisure thing, look, I don't know where it comes from, but it's actualized itself before. Even in the Romanov Palace during the Russian Revolution, they had these red wristbands that the communists wore and promoted, and all the aristocracy in the palace were wearing these wristbands and on board with this amazing new thing, and oh, how exciting, until it literally showed up at their doors and buried them all 6 feet underground. So I don't know if it's leisureliness or just stupidity that causes it, and probably both. But I know that the outcome is death, and it's revealed itself multiple times that that's what it is.
So how'd you get into fashion? Total 180.
That's a quick transition. Very, serendipitously, really. Nothing that was like, I wasn't passionate about fashion. Like, I was studying computer science and business in university. It was more so that I wanted to be in sales. I'd been selling books door to door as a way to pay for school through university. I did quite well at it. It helped me. Hey, look, it's Alice Cooper on the screen next to me. It helped me establish myself, make some money in door-to-door sales, and then I wanted to continue my sales career. And I literally sat down and made a list of things that I liked and that were important to me, and in order of importance. Things like earning money, things like being able to scale a company. I had this idealistic view that I wanted to grow a business. Things like I wanted to work with important, successful people. Like, I wanted access to people that my parents don't have access to and that I would never thought I'd have access to. Like partners at law firms and private equity firms and bankers and top surgeons. I wanted access to great people. And the more I went down the list of things that were important to me, um, everything sort of came together when I thought, hey, like high-end luxury suits, like beautiful clothing, will give me access to wealthy, successful people that I would, accelerate my ability to be in front of them. It would give me an opportunity to sell a product, which is something I wanted to do. It gave me the opportunity to scale internationally because there were no, certifications to sell clothes, not like selling insurance or financial products. And so, in one way, I felt like I designed my own life. And then I had a conversation with a friend of mine some years later, and he's like, "Do you really think that you designed your own life?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "No, man. Your plan was preset for you from the beginning." And I didn't believe that until this happened. A couple of years ago, I found out that my last name Toukhcher was what my great grandfather changed our last name to, because our last name back in 3 generations back in Ukraine was Margolis, but my great grandfather happened to be a tailor, and a very good tailor in Kiev. And a lot of the folks, the Jews back in the day, would change their last name to reflect their profession. And so he changed our last name to Toukhcher, which is Yiddish for tailor. So tell
Wow.
me if that was a design or if it was meant to be. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. What's cool about your fashion is that it's not just, high end quality stuff, but it has a story, as we know from the Heaven and Hell suit. Let's start with that suit, because I remember talking with you at ARC, and I thought that kind of what you saw on the outside was the whole thing. But no, there are all of these details on the inside. So can you tell me about the conception of that idea and some of those cool details? Before we continue, let me quickly tell you about MyPillow. I use a lot of MyPillow products. I walk into work wearing my slippers, I sleep on a MyPillow, and I use my towels. And you can get a lot of these products at a discount if you use the promo code Hartman. Right now, MyPillow has a big bedding sale. You can get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98. Rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. They also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles. They even have blankets for your pets. Get duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more, all with the biggest discounts ever. They're also extending their money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2024, making them great gifts for your friends, your family, and everyone you know. So go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Hartman, or call 1-800-566-6745, and you'll get big discounts on all MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
So most of our clients are not looking for a suit that tells a story. I just want to lay the groundwork there. Like most of our clients are going to be your typical hardworking white collar professionals that wear suits to work. We do a lot of blue and gray suits. That's what dudes like. But here's the thing: I really wanted to work with Jordan Peterson. In fact, I had I'm a believer in visualization and actualization, law of attraction, all that. So initially, I wanted to work with The Rock.
With whom?
And,
I'm sorry.
I got a chance.
Who?
I wanted to work with The Rock, with Dwayne Johnson.
Oh.
And
I heard Barack. Like Obama.
No, not Barack.
I was like,
Rock.
no.
Whatever, man. A prez is a prez. But, I was looking at, like, The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and through a series of hilarious and unintentional events, even though, I hadn't been directly trying to access that channel, I actually got a chance to make 12 suits. Now that I think about it, it's 12 suits as well. That's crazy. I just made the connection that it was 12 suits. I got to make 12 suits for the movie Skyscraper with The Rock, which was like completely insane. So I thought, hey, if that worked, who's the next guy on my list? And it was Jordan Peterson. I'd been consuming his content and his lectures online. And I'm not talking about like, the tours he was doing. This is well before that. I just happened to very much enjoy psychology, and I've been watching his lectures. I'm like, these are awesome. And I spent probably 6-7 hours some days, like on a Sunday, while I was doing some admin work for my business, like listening to Jordan Peterson's lectures, pausing, and then restating some things on my company calls. He's got some great stuff on building organizations, like the Pareto principle and Roots law and all these kind of stuff that he elaborates on quite pragmatically and quite knowledgeably. Anyway, so I'm like, I want to work with this dude, and so the first avenue was his brother. He's got a brother named Joel in Canada who had already been a client of our company for from going back several years. And so I reached out to Joel, and Joel was not responding to that. Like, I guess, probably a lot of people asked to access his brother. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then eventually we did get through to him through Tammy, who replied to a message. But by the time that she had replied to the message, I'd already done all the work. Like, we designed, concepts for the wardrobe. We knew that we were going to call it the 12 Suits for Life because, he's got the 12 rules for life. And obviously, I had to take a guess. I had to venture out and risk this guess to think that, Jordan Peterson probably would be very into storytelling. Okay, well, if now obviously it's quite self-evident, but at the time maybe it wasn't to me. But I thought, hey, I'm going to tell a story to him about the suits we're going to make for him, and I wrote out some very, very lengthy, some let's say stalker level, emails outlining the detail of that and the thoughtfulness behind what I wanted to make for him from our company, including this suit right here, the Heaven and Hell suit. And I got an opportunity to jump on a Zoom call with him, and he was sort of, obviously doesn't know who I am at this point. He kind of hears something about suits and something about a guy on a Zoom call. And at first he's sort of like semi paying attention, like he's got some stuff going on. He's up in his cabin in Ontario. And after I start, talking for about 3-4 minutes, he's like, hang on a second. He's like, Tammy, get over here. Like, he understood that, like, obviously we'd really done our research. There was a visual presentation, just like what you're looking at with the real pictures. There was a presentation, which is on our website. You can watch the same presentation I showed him where we illustrated all that and talked about each of the stories of the suits. And he was really into it. And this suit right here, the Heaven and Hell suit, was the riskiest suit in that collection. And, everything I was trying to be pretty conservative. I've since learned that Dr. Peterson really likes a good story. But at the time, this was the stage suit. And I wanted to capture the second principle in his book, which actually, starts off with the second rule. It starts off with that people are better at giving medicine to their animals than they are to themselves. But some of the themes, the underlying ethos of that chapter talked about, I guess, Solzhenitsyn, right? The line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every man.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about the yin and the yang, and he talked about those being metaphors for the masculine and the feminine, and for heaven and hell. So there were some metaphors that sort of focused on this duality, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, man, the line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every man. And so I wanted to make a 2-color suit to represent good and evil, obviously red and blue for, fire and sky, heaven and hell. And then I started doing some deeper research. So I really went pretty deep down the rabbit hole on this. Like I said, this was stalker level stuff. Like, I really wanted to do a great job. Like, I really wanted to live up to the reputation that Dr. Peterson had rightfully acquired. And I started looking for themes in the Bible as well. And I found, Matthew, the judgment of nations, which is, God will place the sheep on, I guess, on one hand and goats on the other. And I thought, man, we can meta this. So the heaven side, the blue side of the suit, is made out of sheep's wool. So, God put his sheep on one hand. And the red side, the hell side of the suit, is made out of mohair, which is goat's wool.
Mm.
And so that suit is not only different colors, it's different construction, different materials that we use to represent the theme of the suit. And so then we did one blue pant, one red pant. So one is he's basically seen the picture there. He's wearing the red pants, like grounded in hell. The blue pants are grounded in heaven. We didn't. One of the most common questions online is why doing the pant legs differ, because then he looks like a harlequin, and we don't want that.
Yeah, it would have looked weird.
Yeah, we illustrated. We didn't like it, so we made him a pair of both. And I was very scared about that suit, so I made it first. I ran at my fear. That's the first suit we delivered. We delivered it to him in Antwerp, Belgium, while he was on tour there. And he loved it. He was like, and that was the one I was scared. I said up front, look, I'm going to make you the craziest suit in the collection first. And he thought it was great. And then we got a little bit lucky, and unlucky but lucky. The suit was a great fit. We wanted to, I think, let out the waist. Usually on a first fitting, there's some adjustments. In this case, I think we just let out the waist. And he had been traveling that tour, and he was going from Belgium up to Finland to Helsinki to do a show. And and he was flying commercial to Finland. I took the suit back to alter it, and the airline lost his luggage, and so he had no suits for the show.
Oh my
Now we're
gosh.
based in Estonia. The suit was with me; it was ready. So I had one of my salespeople, my clothiers, Revo, took a boat on Sunday morning up to Helsinki with the suit, and he delivered it in time for the show. And so it was a nice opportunity for us not only to get the suit seen very early on, but also, show Jordan that we're not just gonna hit and run here. Like, we're not looking just for an engagement. We want to build a relationship and help him on his quest any way we can, even if it's just having a little bit of fun with clothing. Like put something fun into it. So he saw that, and that gave us an opportunity to show what we do as an organization. And that's great, because since then we've been able to do some cool artistic projects, and wasn't the last time the airlines lost his suits. So watch out.
Oh my gosh. Well, as you said, it was unlucky and lucky. This is really cool that you reached out to him and gave a, as you joke, stalker level presentation. And some people may go, wow, well, that was bold. Or, a lot of businesses, I think, are used to clients coming to them, not them identifying specific clients. But I think it's a great rule for life to figure out who really smart, accomplished, deep people are who you can learn from, and get in front of them in any way you can. Obviously, you don't want to be, insane about it, and you don't want to be disingenuous about it. But I remember when I was in college, and when I discovered Dennis Prager in PragerU Online, I was a liberal. He and PragerU made me conservative. I read all of his books, and I thought, I've got to get in front of this guy. Like, he needs to be in my life. And so I emailed him, graciously invited me onto the show, and that day I was leaving the radio station, and I thought, okay, I have to find a way to stay in this person's life. And so I pitched to him. I said, can I work for you? I said, I will do anything. Can I intern for you for one summer? I said, I'll shine your shoes. I'll get your dry cleaning. I'll pick up your newspapers. I don't care what I'm doing. I just want to be in the room with you. I want to be as physically close to you as possible to learn from you. And clearly you did the same thing. God bless.
That's my life. I mean, look, so this idea of privilege, I don't buy it at all. I think it's complete BS. I hate that word. I think it's so misconstrued to just teach people a victim mentality,
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it was probably, as much as it's targeted towards white men, it was this word probably was invented, to be used so viciously by a woman. I'll just say it right now. And here's why. Because most men growing up know that, like, dudes don't get a lot of privilege. Like, nobody really likes young men, Like, when I was a young dude in university, girls weren't approaching me. Jobs weren't being thrown at me. Financial opportunities were not being pitched to me in a way that, unless they were scammy things. Like, it's just not how it works. And I learned from a very early, like, I was a door-to-door salesman. I made my money knocking on people's doors in my early life. And so I made it a mission that, like, if I want something, it's up to me to actualize it and make it happen. And I teach the people in our company that if it's to be, it's up to me. Like, I can't. And let me kind of iterate this to its logical conclusion. Like, I spent a lot of time last year thinking about what the definition of leadership is, right? Because I run an organization, so I think about this word leadership. And it came to me finally that leadership is really helping people help themselves. Like, helping people is not leadership, because I can give you some money. I can give you a fish, the Chinese proverb. You'll eat a fish and you'll spend that money. It doesn't really help, because then you'll come back for more money. But what I can do is I can teach you to make money. And so the suit that you like, and thank you, at ARC, it actually says make money. Honestly, I think get money would be better. I really like it. But it says make money.
I stand
it
corrected.
Says make money. Yeah, it says make money, because that is my philosophy on how to become, first, before you can accomplish anything else in life, you have to solve your money. Like, that's something I'm teaching I have 4 young children. It's something I'm teaching my kids. Like before you can go out and try to solve the world, solve your own problems first, because then you'll actually understand how the world works. Mm-hmm. And so when you said, look, I went to Prager and I was like, look, I'll do this, this, and that. That is completely the opposite of the experience that quote unquote successful folks have. Like, my experience is, and I was interviewing people, up to a couple of years ago in our company when they were applying for let's say a sales position, and my experience was like just a way too high a preponderance of people, a shocking amount of people, shocking amount, would say, listen, I know you have this entry level job where I can learn the business, but my degree is international relations. I think I'd like to start as vice president and add you know, some of my intellectual creativity to the business and really help you run it. And it's like, hearing that from a 22-year-old who just came out of college is just so deflating. You're like, oh man, it's just such a wrong view. That when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey man, I just want to learn. I don't care about this and that. Like, I just want to find the way to be the best. That's not normal, right? And when I approached JP and the clan, I didn't come there saying, hey, I want to make your suits. Like, I don't believe that the quality of my work will be sold by me telling them that my work is good. I did all the work in advance. I ventured to take the risk, and I did all of it. And then I approached them with the finished product, and I said, you can judge the product on its own merits. And if it failed, fine. I would have spent hundreds of hours on it, and it failed. Whatever. There's many things I spend many hours on that have failed. But that's something I teach the young folks in our company and beyond. Like, come with a finished product and show your work. Don't promise that you'll do it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That is so true. So, okay, so the suit says make money. I stand corrected. Why did you think get money would be better? And also so besides, obviously what you just said, the philosophy of take care of yourself, don't blame others, make it happen for you. What was kind of the philosophy behind that suit? Are there cool details in it as well?
Well, I'll say get money's better. It just sounds more disagreeable. I like it. I want it to be a little. I wanted it to be a little electrical shock.
See, I like make money better. I'm glad it's make money. I think that doesn't sound as I'm trying to use a word that I don't know if I can use on the air, but I'm going to say it anyway. Douchey. Sounds less douchey.
Hey, it's meant to be a little douchey because it's meant to inspire some questions. But I think it was. Can't remember if it was Robert Kiyosaki or somebody that said that, successful people don't choose A or B, they do both. And so obviously after this call, I'm going to immediately make myself a get money suit as well. It says make money because that is my fundamental philosophy, period, end of sentence. Look, I come from the Soviet Union. I come from a Jewish family in the Soviet Union. One thing people need to understand, in the Soviet Union, always there's the threat of you disappearing. Because the ultimate outcome of an authoritarian society where everybody has to abide to some kind of a, virtuous, judicious outcome, which is completely insane, the outcome is always going to be death. And the reason it's going to be death is because it's a singular focus, and a singular focus is going to be driven by a singular philosophy, and the singular philosophy, like even if you're good Stalin, and you have good motives, eventually bad Stalin realizes he can get everything that he wants out of everybody else by forcing him to oblige by that philosophy. And bad Stalin kills good Stalin because bad Stalin plays by different rules. I don't know. There's a less convoluted way of saying that, but if you unpack it, it's true. To me, like, you can solve a lot of your problems. For example, I left Canada. I'm an expat. I was able to leave Canada because I had made some money and I was able to move and financially be independent of that country, trying to support me as leftist Canada does try. I had to pay a bunch of money to leave with an exit tax, but I don't pay corporate income tax anymore. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that is not being spent on paying the government to do things I don't agree with. Instead, we pay our people and we pay to grow our business even more. Now, people might say, well, taxes are the entry point to a civil society. Sure, but not crazy high taxes. Like, for example, in Estonia, there's a 22% now. It was a 20%. Now it's a 20. I think it's a 22%. Yeah, flat personal income tax rate. It's a flat 22%. That's it. End of sentence. There's no other taxes. Sales tax, whatever, in the transactions, consumption, fine. In Canada, I was paying almost 50% of my income in taxes. And the service in Estonia is better in every way. The medicine here is way cheaper because it's subsidized somehow from that. The education system is ranking number 2 in the world. Okay? Access to doctors, so it takes about 5 minutes. It's an electronic paperless government, so voting is done online. Taxes are filed in 5 minutes every year. Everything works better, and I'm paying 60% less taxes for it. So it's a better product at a way lower cost. I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't make some money. Now, if things go sour and there's some kind of a border conflict that's happening, or maybe ideologically things don't go the way I like, I can move.
Mm-hmm.
I can move. I can leave. And here's another example. When the war in Ukraine broke out, I had a lot of employees in Kiev in Ukraine. We had an office there for our client support center and call center. And you know what? When the war broke out and people couldn't leave, our guys were able to leave because we were able to pay the right people for them to leave, and they can continue building their dreams instead of dying in a war that unfortunately continues to kill people basically unnecessarily at this point. Pardon my bluntness. So there has to be, some philosophy to me. And I don't like government. Obviously, I grew up in the Soviet Union. I've seen what happens. I don't want to be a reflection of the policies of my government, because why should I be held to a standard that somebody else imposed on me? And freedom has to come first. And so that's why the suit says what it says.
Mm. I like hearing this explanation, because you would see it and you would think douchey, but then you really hear what it's about and you realize that there really is something deeper about it.
Well, I reserve the right to be douchey. Like, don't get me wrong. That's why make money if you can't say F you. Yeah.
That's the Billions quote. Do you watch that show Billions? What's the point of F you money?
I don't, but I know the quote. Yeah, of course the quote, yeah.
So I love watching some of your videos on Instagram, and in one of them, you said that your strength is the, quote, science of persuasion. What is that?
It's the ability to lead a person. Well, so I use that in the context of sales, amongst other things. It's an ability to lead a person to a decision that's mutually beneficial, and that you have to have an ability to persuade. You have to have an ability to have some input over the outcome. And as a salesman, for example, there's several things I have to do every day to persuade. Number one, when I started the company, I had to persuade our clients to give us an opportunity to work with them. So, and people think salesmen, they think pushy, product pitcher. That doesn't work, obviously. It doesn't mean doing things that don't work. It means doing things that do work. As a CEO of a company, I have to persuade our people to put in their best effort to be here so that our clients have the best outcomes. I have to persuade new people to join our company. Like, if you look at our website right now, there's a lot of very, very famous people that we work with, from Alice Cooper to, Eddie Hall to Tommy Fury to Jordan Peterson. Now it's going to be like Ozzy Osbourne. We're just making a suit for him right now. Like, so there's lots of that's Zakk Wylde as guitarist. Like, lots of very, very famous people whom we work with. And the reason those people are there is that's a persuasive tactic, right? We're showing the world that we are socially proofed. Like, if very high profile, very famous people like our products and millions of eyes see our suits every day, then therefore we have credibility in the marketplace and we're a credible company to join. So that's that. So social proof, like that right there, is an example of a tactic inspired to persuade.
What advice would you give to someone who's just graduating from college and they would say to you, Dimitry, I want to make a lot of money. I want to get in front of successful people, but I don't really know how to do it. I don't know what my skill is. And even if I do have a skill, I don't know how to actualize that into a lucrative business. What would you say to them?
So 75% of billionaires worked in direct sales. That's an actual stat. So the first thing I would tell them is come work at LGFG Fashion House, because here at our organization, we're in the business of teaching young people the skills, the technical aptitudes, and of course some of the character that's needed to be successful in the rest of their life and career. And one of two things will happen when they work with us. Number one, they'll fall in love with the business and they'll continue to help us build a great company. Our goal is to be $100 million by the next 4 years. Or they'll work for a couple of years. They'll realize maybe this industry is not for them, but they'll walk away with incredible skills in selling and closing deals, and a phenomenal Rolodex of clients that will help them get a job in any industry and hire them in a minute, because they know how hardworking and how persistent and how conscientious they are.
Maybe I'll come and work for LGFG Fashion House.
Bring Prager. He knows people.
This has been so fun. Thank you, Dimitry, for coming on. I know it's late there in Estonia, but I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see what suits you have coming up. We've got to have you on again and look at the Ozzy Osbourne one. Does that one have a story behind it?
Oh, of course. Like when you're working at that level, you have to you just have to tell stories, right? And man, what an opportunity to share somebody's story through this sort of a canvas. It's an interesting way to present the story, isn't it?
It is. I love that, the sheep's wool, and then I'm forgetting what the other one was. Wool.
Maybe Ozzy suit will make out of bat. I don't know. Let's see.
Well, as I said, I'm excited to see it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon, somewhere in the world.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you so much for watching. As a reminder, you can always email me at julie@julie-hartman.com to let me know your thoughts, questions, comments, criticisms, anything. I love hearing from you, and I do respond to most of my mail. Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.